I like Gotham Knights. It's not the best game I've ever played, but following all the bad press, I'm pleasantly surprised. I actually haven't seen any other feedback on this game aside from the early scores that released, because I don't want my own opinions to be tainted by others. I've played about 5 hours of Gotham Knights, an hour with each character, and a little extra with Nightwing, just cause he's who I wanted to be when I grew up. The game is solid. At times, it feels like it could have come out 8 years ago, and mechanics can feel rough, like they needed to cook in development for just a bit more, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't having a fun time. The story is interesting, and I'm really warming up to this interpretation of Gotham following a lukewarm introduction to the main cast. Now, I'm just a dum-dum with no leg to stand on when it comes to saying a game is technically good or bad. This is just a simple video from the perspective of a lifelong Bat-Fam fan who has been looking forward to this game since it was announced back in 2020. If you think my opinions on the story and gameplay could be of value to you, then please hear me out as I dive into the good, the bad, and the fun without any spoilers. Starting with the story, it hits the ground running in some unexpected ways. While the opening cutscenes felt like they went on for way too long, I loved the Batman death battle. I wasn't expecting to see the death scene in this game, and I really didn't expect it to go down like that, but it was badass as hell and helped position the player in the world of this established and experienced Batman. The introduction to the main cast was sloppy as hell though. Once they run up to the destroyed manor, you could feel the quality drop. They're all just silent, and it's so awkward. The same when they finally start talking over Batman's grave. This is a presentation problem that I think the game really struggles with. There seems to be a difficulty they couldn't overcome with balancing 4 leads. Like, there's this intro thing when you can rotate between them all as they talk to each other, and it's just awkward and clunky. Luckily, that's the last of the clunk in that regard, but they didn't put their best foot forward, and I could understand that souring some people early on. I'm barely into the plot as of now. We've met Talia, gone to see Harley, and visited Penguin. All of it is leading to the Court of Owls, but then after that, I'm not quite sure. It feels like Talia will likely be connected to the final conflict because she's such a major character, but I really don't know how things will shape out, which is nice. Also, I really love this Harley. Haven't seen too much of her, but what a breath of fresh air. Actually being smart and creepy, rather than ditzy and my cousin Vinny. The real stars of this game so far are the real stars of this game. Particularly Jason, Tim, and Alfred I've been loving, but Dick and Babs are good too, just a little blander than the others, at least so far. Tim struggling to come to terms with his place in the world, Jason dealing with all his Jason shit, and Alfred trying to hold all his grandchildren together in a time without a Batman is just interesting. I like how early on we aren't being drowned in villains, and we're just starting to be introduced to the supporting cast like Lucius and Montoya. It was important to see these characters establish their personalities, skills, and relationships before expanding. I'm happy to say that the story stands out as a unique entry in the Batman universe that, at least up to this point, has a solid start with a great deal of promise. Will it stick the landing? Ask me in December. The gameplay is where some cracks begin to show for me. It's a bit rougher than I hoped for. There's a jankiness in the gameplay that rears its head far more often than within the story. The combat is the biggest offender here, but even walking around can be a challenge. There were a number of times I got caught on a corner or just didn't move right. For this game, precision in movement is everything, so that's a problem both in combat and traversal. The traversal is also hard to describe. It's both fun and also repetitive, which ironically will be a repetitive issue with all gameplay elements. I enjoy zipping around the city and leaping off a point to zip again, but the game almost doesn't feel designed to want you to do that, since it's all so samey. It's all a straight zip with no variations on the movement or different animations, so that does feel boring after a while. You can travel across the map just zipping and jumping, but it'll be faster to take your magic invisible motorcycle that stalks you throughout the city. This thing is alright. It controls okay, but it doesn't give you any sense of speed. Look at this. Robin's cape isn't even flowing. The bike would feel much faster with just an improvement to that animation. I haven't gotten to the weird traversal power-ups or fast travel stations yet, so I can't speak to those, but you do enough running around Gotham in the early game that these problems are apparent from the jump. It doesn't help that everyone feels exactly the same too. maybe Nightwing jumps a bit higher. Honestly, since this open world does remind me a lot of Spider-Man PS4, and the zipping reminds me of the zipping in that game too, with how light the characters feel, I think some swinging with a grapple would be a welcome addition. Not like crazy Spider-Man swinging, but you know, from point A to point B could really help mix things up, because it does feel fairly flat and uninspired. Which sucks, because the map is so huge, detailed, and beautiful that I want to explore and enjoy the process of exploration. Maybe the upgraded Traversal will fix that. For real, this Gotham is fantastic. It towers over you in a way that feels imposing. The different districts have a distinct feel to them through their architecture and environments that I really appreciated. The open world is actually where this game thrives. You can move seamlessly into new environments without any loading times. Early on in the game, there's a crime going on at this weird dome building in the Robinson Park section of the city, and you can get in multiple different ways and take down the thugs inside. Then you solve the crime and just keep moving throughout the open world. It's awesome how every crime isn't just on the street, and there's that mobility to transition in and out of structures seamlessly. It isn't the biggest deal, but it does add to that feeling of Gotham as this massive, sprawling, cohesive beast that these apprentices now have to take on themselves, which is really what the game is going for. There's a line that Nightwing tells to Lucius. Batman was always one step ahead of everyone, even this city, but he feels like he's 5 steps behind. The city that Bruce has passed down to them is an amorphous blob, shifting with its different regions, factions, and villains that these heroes struggle to keep up with, and I think the design of the city was critical to delivering on that feeling, and it 100% succeeded. The open world mechanics themselves are also interesting. I enjoy the random crimes, thugs to interrogate, premeditated crimes, some collectibles here and there, and multiple ongoing investigations you can choose to pursue regardless of your current level. At the end of each night, you get a little stat report that is fairly meaningless, but it's still cool to see as the game loads. The one thing I don't love about the open world is that you need to return to the Belfry to equip your gear, even when you can upgrade it in the open world. For example, I was at Blackgate as Red Hood, and I hate his brown hoodie design from Red Hood and the Outlaws, so when I got the classic leather jacket, I jumped at the chance, but I had to finish the story level in order to go back to the Belfry and then equip it. I get how logically, yeah, he can't just change outfits mid-mission, but come on, this is a video game that pitched itself on customization. I can't even level up my weapons in the middle of a mission or the open world, which is pretty annoying. If the mission is difficult, you cannot access upgrades you've earned, and in the open world, going back to the Belfry resets your current progress. It's like the game is punishing you for wanting to participate in one of its main selling points. I like the Belfry as a hub. It's cool to see the other characters together, but I don't want to feel like I'm forced to go back more often than I'd like. I think it should only be necessary for changing characters and story missions. It's a tough tightrope to walk, but I think they force the Belfry on players just a bit too much. Now, the combat. This is the toughest selling point to me. It just isn't smooth, and I feel like what is here had some interesting ideas, but much like I was saying with the Traversal, there just isn't enough variation to keep things exciting. It's light heavy punch or light heavy range attack without room for building up combos. Now, that's just in my experience, and as you've seen throughout this video, I'm fairly dog shit at this game. I like the idea of the timed strikes. I haven't been able to master those, but the problem again is that it's like a 4-hit combo, and then there's an awkward pause before beginning again. I think the overall timing of combat just feels off. It doesn't feel very fluid, and frankly, the ranged attacks for everyone but Red Hood feel wimpy and useless. Nightwing's firing darts around. It'd be so much cooler if he's throwing his Iskrisma sticks. Batgirl with the Batarang is fine, probably the second best, but Robin with the stupid slingshot is so lame. What is he, 5 years old? The little dude has teleport technology, but carries around a 1920s plaything on his hip against armed mobsters? Maybe as the game progresses, you can upgrade your combat flow a bit with new combos or something. Looking at the abilities, that doesn't appear to be the case. But hey, I just don't know. I will say that the momentum abilities do add a fun dynamic that mixes combat up every so often. That's the saving grace at this point, but it just isn't enough. The stealth leaves a lot to be desired. It's silent takedowns or ambush takedowns, and that's really it. one is silent, one is loud. I feel like there isn't enough verticality when it comes to the stealth, which makes things a little boring. You can creep around on the rooftops or on lampposts, but at the end of the day, you're just jumping down to choke out a guy and then continue creeping. At this point, there aren't any fun gadgets that you have to make stealth more exciting, so it's the same problem I have with the gameplay overall. It's very repetitive without a lot of options to mix things up. And I have no friends, so I cannot comment on multiplayer. Who is my favorite character to play as? Honestly, they all feel nearly identical to me, except for Red Hood. I appreciate Red Hood's focus on gunplay over combat, even though the dude is built like a brick shithouse. I mean, wow! Each character has their own little bonuses here or there that I'm sure are amplified as the game progresses, but honestly, Nightwing and Barbara play surprisingly similar with their main combat, the ranged being the only real difference between them. Yeah, Nightwing is more flippy. Look at how he gets on the bat cycle compared to everyone else. Do a little less, Dick. Robin does mix things up with his bow staff, which seems to give him a bit more range. Also, since he's a small child in a horrifyingly brutal city, he can sneak around a bit easier, which I do appreciate. Again, these are just my first impressions that will likely change as I get 50 plus hours with these characters, but from the jump, Red Hood is the only real standout from the rest of the family, which I was kind of disappointed by. I'm hoping further variation develops as I progress. The in-game customization is also pretty fun. I'm not one to really give a shit about this kind of stuff, but for DC heroes, I am a sucker. I appreciate how much of the suits you can manipulate since some of the base designs are butt ugly. I mean, look at this Robin suit. I could mold vomit to look better. Stick with the classic domino mask, thank you! It's fun changing these things up. I just wish for the color options there was a statement somewhere about how exactly to unlock those. I assume it's progression through the story, but I'd do anything to change Batgirl's costume from purple and yellow, so if I knew what to do, that'd be my only goal. I just wish things like that in the menu weren't so vague. Overall though, pretty in-depth with a lot of great options. That's everything I can talk about with this game. Somehow, despite the gameplay issues, I do enjoy running through Gotham and beating up thugs, and this interpretation of the Batman mythos has me interested, but not quite hooked yet. Like I said, this isn't the second coming of Christ, and I don't know why it should be held to the highest of all standards. I could comment on how generally disappointing AAA games have been the last few years, and how the tasteless bores at IGN, who gave Valhalla an 8 out of 10, can fuck themselves, but I won't. Gotham Knights isn't groundbreaking, but it doesn't have to be. It's not for everyone, nor should it be. It's not the next big thing, but it's fun. If you like these characters, if you like this world, if you've been dying to see a new story told in Gotham from a refreshing perspective, then you'll probably get some enjoyment out of this game. I'm dying to get back into it and see where things go. Maybe it will fall on its face in the end, but hey, at least it's trying something new. As always, Alfred is the best character in the game.